Hey, welcome to the Overcast. This is Overman. It's Saturday, April 1st, 2006, and I'm doing my part, as I do every year, to support April Fool's Day by being one of the world's biggest suckers. I've already fallen for a couple doozies this year, and the day is still young, so anyway, be grateful for people like me. We kind of help keep this holiday alive. Let's jump right in and start talking about some promotion aspects. I've got a lot to cover here and not much time. So, promotion. Once you've got a Machinima film and you're ready to get it out there to the world, obviously the biggest goal, the thing that we all have in common is we want our film to be seen. And what is the best way to go about doing that? Obvious first step is to get your film listed and or hosted at one of the major sites. Machinima.com, obviously the new up-and-comer Machinima Premiere, which not nearly enough people are making use of yet. Sims99.com, which does host or does list non-Sims films, by the way. Some people don't know that. And MachinimaHQ, which is a little pickier with their content, but if you've got something that is what would be considered premium grade, it's definitely worth looking into. There's also the game-specific sites, of course. Lionhead's the movies site, HaloMovies.org, WarcraftMovies.com. Those are useful to a degree, but if you really want to expand your audience beyond just people who came to it through your game of choice, then you really need to look outside of that. Places like the Internet Archive, which it's stunning to me how few people are taking advantage of this. It's free hosting, uploading of your films. I don't think that there's any spatial limits at all. They're very, very cool people running it. And there's maybe a handful of people that are actually making use of that. That is definitely worth looking into. YouTube is another one that there's a handful of Machinima people that are using with varying degrees of success. Toughest thing about YouTube is that your film is competing with an awful lot of content. I mean, a lot of different stuff. But it can certainly bring in some viewers that you wouldn't otherwise get. There's also some other sites similar to YouTube that are starting to crop up, such as GameVideos.com, which, while still in its beta, is one to definitely keep an eye on. And you can submit stuff to it now, by the way, so that's one worth looking at. There's also Google Video, which scares some people, but, you know, it really is worth looking at because Google's search capabilities are so powerful, you're bound to draw people in through that you wouldn't otherwise catch, perhaps. One that I'd personally recommend avoiding, by the way, is iFilm, which used to be kind of a major hub back in its day. But, boy, if you read the fine print on their terms of use agreement, it's a little on the scary side. And actually, with any of these sites that do have agreements, be sure to read those in close detail. iFilm is just one that caught my particular attention. That the terms, I don't know how they would be considered acceptable to any Machinima maker unless you're just someone who's making disposable content and you really don't give a crap. But if you do care about control of your material, iFilm is kind of a scary one. Now, there's some pros and cons of using these off-site vehicles like YouTube, like Google Video. Bernie Burns talked some about them in that podcast he did that I mentioned last week. If you really want to connect with your audience, you want to get them to come to your site so you can interact with them. So that's something that needs to be weighed in there. Actually, podcasters are confronted with that same decision when looking at iTunes versus their own site.
It's the clip of the week.
All right, this week's clip of the week comes from a film called Showdown in Foggytown by FoDoog Films. You probably remember them from their film Come On, which was also made in the movies, Lionhead's The Movies. This has a return of many of the same voice actors from the first one, and perhaps even some of the same characters. I confess I'm not exactly sure on that. Some of the people who've reviewed it seem to think so. But again, very interesting stuff. Check this out.
I really have no idea how this happened. It's like being somewhere in a dream. I know I was there, in the subway, but things started to feel different. People were moving through the subway, minding their own business. I really should have known as soon as that horse approached me.
Morning!
And then suddenly, I can't remember exactly, but I was in this cell, and...
Oh, shut up! Shut the hell up, please! I can't stand it when he talks like this. Now, back to my plan to become mayor and get this town into my grass.
It's the clip of the week. Hey!
Those guys at FoDoog are really having a lot of fun making their films, you can tell. One of the easiest ways to promote yourself, get yourself out there, is to participate in discussion forums. Now, I don't mean just make a post when you have something to release, because there's kind of a sense among the regulars on the board that, you know, hey, this guy doesn't give a crap about us. He's just coming when he's got something to sell, basically. So that's just something to be weighed, that some people are just going to dismiss it if the only time that you show up and participate is when you want something from them. People tend to be a little more receptive to announcements like that from people that are actually giving something back to the board. But that being said, having a good signature, which lists your website, your blog, that kind of thing, very, very easy to do. Also very easy to overdo. Don't do the big graphics. Certainly don't put like streaming video in your signature or something absurd like that. That's just going to tick people off. Let's look at a couple reviews here this week. This first film is called Scarborough Fair by Mike Fraser, or otherwise known as Taco Shack 27. It's actually not a brand new film. Looks like one that he's pulled from his archives. He made it back in 2004. He says that he just made it as an experiment, but it was a really nicely done little thing. If anything, as an effects demo, it's really impressive. Some very nice post-production on there. Really good chroma keying effects. And frankly, the song is like really great. Scarborough Fair, it's Sarah Brightman who did the version for that. And the video fits it really well. It's nothing spectacular, nothing's going to blow your socks off, and frankly, it's not the best of his works. And I mean that in a complimentary way. He's one of the more prolific filmmakers out there in terms of he just cranks out film after film after film. Definitely specializes in the music video stuff, and he's one of the best at it. So Scarborough Fair is his latest one. It's worth taking a look at. Next review I want to do today is a film called Blackbird by Silver Fox Studio. Now this one is The Movies movie, and it really, really caught me by surprise. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but at some of these sites, The Movies included, you know, the stuff that they label as their hot picks or as their, you know, best content, editor's choice. I mean, it's just unbelievable how bad. I don't know if it's just that the bar is that low or what, but I don't quite understand some of the picks that happen sometimes. That being said, this film Blackbird is one of the higher ranked films over there, is kind of a hot pick, I think is what they call it. And this one, it's definitely warranted. The only way I know how to describe this film without giving anything away is it's kind of like if John Woo were to direct, you know, a film about Ebenezer Scrooge. It's just, it's out there and very, very interesting, very fresh, very different from what you're used to seeing in Machinima. Certainly different from what you're used to seeing in the movies. Very, very good production values, great story. And the musical score includes some music by Magnatune artist Claire Fitch, who you may remember from Machinima Live. a couple months ago. Anyway, this is a spectacular film, I think, and I've got an audio clip here. Let's listen to this.
I've been expecting you, Sufu.
你點知我個名嘅 I mean, do I know you?
Moi c'est Guang du moi. I can understand Cantonese. Don't worry, just stick to your dialect, buddy.
Yeah, this film actually, it has some subtitling, but that's because some of the dialogue actually does occur in Cantonese. It's kind of a Cantonese-English mix. Very, very interesting. Again, it's called Blackbird by Silver Fox Studios. And I just think it's perhaps the best thing ever to come out of the movies so far. And I certainly hope that we get to see more from this guy very soon.
Look, it's Jesus! My brothers and sisters, I, Jesus, Son of God, have risen from the grave to tell you that... Where's the candy? What?
That is from Jesus versus Easter by Mefune Akira. He had actually he's released this film a few different times. And each time he kind of further refines it and improves it. You can definitely pick up Monty Python influence in his writing, even more pronounced, I think, than you can in FoDoog in their writing. This latest improvement is actually up there live now. I think the last one had come out, and then it seems like he took it offline almost immediately, which I take that to mean probably Mefune is probably a perfectionist, and it's one of those things where he goes back and watches and goes, man, I can do so much better than that, and so he'll take it down. Anyway, it is up right now, and it's definitely worth looking at. He's got another film that's very funny called The Unwanted Hetero, which should probably stir up about as much controversy as Jesus vs. Easter will. Fourth and final review I want to do this week is a film called ChronoDash Dead Leaves by Enigmata Productions. This film is made in The Sims 2, and the thing that was most spectacular to me about this film was their ability to give you this sense of a very large-scale urban environment. I've never seen that done effectively in The Sims 2. And just some really nice... Some of it is camera tricks and clever editing, but some of it, too, is really, really good set design. It gives it a very different look from what you're used to seeing. The story is a little bit hard to follow, for me anyway, but the name of it, ChronoDash, it sounds like it might be based on some kind of a, anime mythology or something that I confess I'm not very familiar with a lot of that. But even so, the editing and the camera work make it very good. The voiceovers are, the acting is pretty good in the voiceovers. But the recording quality is pretty poor. That's really the biggest negative that I could see. That being said, the sound effects themselves, the use of sound in the film, very, very well done. You're going to see some things in this that I don't think you've ever seen in The Sims 2 before, or at least not done in quite this way. Again, that's ChronoDash Dead Leaves by Enigmata Productions. And I'll have a link to this along with links to everything else we've talked about today up on the Overcast.com. If you've got suggestions, I gotta tell you, it's a challenge to find films that are, frankly, worth reviewing. I can't tell you how many that I have to sift through that I just feel like would be wasting your time to find the gems. So if you stumble upon one that is above the bar, or even your own film, and you want me to take a look at that and consider reviewing it for the show, drop me a line at me@theovercast.com, and I'd love to take a look at it to get some assistance in finding the good material out there. It's not always easy to find, as many of you know.
Shipped out your orders of meat, your steaks, the rump, the liver, and the other various parts, kidneys and such. You should be receiving them in about 4 to 5 business days. We had a problem with our sausage grinder, though, so the orangutan sausage that you ordered, we're not going to be able to get that out to you. So we'll go ahead and give you a rebate, and thanks for shopping with us, and we hope you'll get all your future monkey meat purchases with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Some of you, when I mention this site, you're going to think that this is my April Fool's joke or something. I assure you that it's not. I am a closet fan of an internet television show called Pwnage, which is a satire on the whole elite gamer thing. Very, very funny, I think. Some people find it unbelievably stupid, and that's because usually they don't tend to interpret it as satire as it's intended to be. They think that it's something serious, that this guy really does think this way or act this way. In which case, yeah, it would be pretty stupid. But to confirm my theory that this is very deliberate and crafted satire, I found an article on their site that they posted just the other day called The Infancy of Internet Television, which is written by their director over there. And it's very, very interesting read. I'm going to put a link to it up on our site. It's talking about the success story of Pwnage, that they're an internet-based television show, basically. They've had 10 episodes, but they don't just do 5-minute episodes like a lot of Machinima does. These are, the length of a standard television show. 30 minutes or so. It is live action stuff, but it's very ingrained in aspects of video game culture. I think a lot of you would find it funny. And they've got quite a success story that's very interesting to read about, especially related to promotion, as we're talking about. They've tracked, and their downloads are in the terabytes with each issue release. So they've got some of the same challenges that Rooster Teeth does in terms of bandwidth and that kind of thing. They actually make use of BitTorrent to distribute some of their stuff. And it's just a very interesting story that I think is relevant for Machinimators. And one of the things that he talks about is the fact that they've got more viewers per episode than most nationwide Canadian television shows. And yet, they're not entitled to some of the same grants and fundings and things like that are just given away to Canadian television stations. And he's not writing it to complain, he's just talking about it as, hey, it's a fact. But one of the things he's encouraged by is an article, which I'll also link from there, where the chief of NBC is making a call for more what he's calling net-savvy television pitches. In other words, the trend of where things are going has to do with giving the audience the ability to interact with what's going on. That people aren't content anymore to just, at least the new generation of viewers, they're not content to just sit back and do nothing. They want to interact. They want to give feedback. American Idol, as much as that drives some people crazy, is a great example of, with its whole voting thing, how that has really kind of peaked and come into its own. Another interesting thing I found, Tom Jantol, otherwise known as Awaken, recently did a review of Moho over at Machinima Premiere. Moho, as you may know, is a 2D animation software, similar in concept to Macromedia Flash or that kind of thing. A lot easier to use than Flash, by the way. Anyway, the review that he wrote was from the perspective of how this can be useful to a Machinima filmmaker. So definitely worth taking a look at there. Also, Friedrich Kirchner of MachinimaHQ recently did a write-up of the Academy of Machinima Arts and Sciences, the booth and the visit that they did at the Game Developers Conference this past week. Or I guess last week. And by the way, the photographs that he took are really, really good. And if you've never looked at his personal blog, where he puts a lot of the photographs that he takes just from the different travels that he does and stuff like that, really, really spectacular photographs. If you've never seen him, well, if you've seen his films, you know he's got an eye for that, and just check it out. Taking a look at the mailbag here, I got a really good email from Ricky Grove regarding promotion. Ricky is the also known online as G-Tune. He is the sound designer and engineer for Riot Films' award-winning Only the Strong Survive. He says, Dear Overman, regarding promotion, I'm not an expert on these kinds of things, but it seems to me that we as Machinima artists need to strike a balance between creating Machinima and promoting it. To a certain extent, Machinima is still a kind of underground art form, so word of mouth is what moves many films right now. Did the makers of Apollyon figure you were going to do a podcast on their show? Probably not. So in a sense, the quality, or lack of it, and originality of your Machinima film will promote itself to some extent, as long as you get the film to the major sites. Sending films to your friends is a good way to get the ball rolling, I think. Related sites, say if your film is horror, get a friend to post on HWA, which is the Horror Writers Association, so that people will watch it and start talking about it. And he also notes on here, a website is a must for a larger project or series. It legitimizes your film in many people's eyes. Hell, many Hollywood people, or many Hollywood indie films begin just as websites. Make sure you provide a variety of downloadable and streaming file types, and make sure they all work, which is key. He also mentioned some of the stuff that they did to promote Only the Strong Survive. Jason Choi and he each had kind of a viewing party at their homes or at places to get local people looking at, talking about the film. And the biggest aid in promoting your film is to make a good film, is what he said. So great advice. Thank you very much, Ricky, for the email. You know, I've had a number of people ask me, so what's the deal with Machinima Live? What happened there? You know, what's going on? And I'm really, really hesitant to get into that. First of all, because I've kind of committed not to that show. But also, I just don't know if there's any way that it can be brought up without it ultimately being hurtful to somebody. Not because I would ever intend it that way, but it's just kind of a sensitive situation. So, what do you think? Should that matter? Am I just being all weepy, oversensitive here? Do you think I should tell the story? If so, in what venue? Should I do it as an interview? Should I talk about it here on the air? Should I go on his show and we talk about it together? I don't even know if he's going to continue having a show. He seems to have kind of disappeared. But it could be he's just got a busy week. Anyway, I don't know. My gut is telling me to stay away from it, but I've got an awful lot of people asking me. Let me know what you think. Drop me an email at me@theovercast.com. Just, tell me what you think about that. Should I talk about it? Should I continue to stay quiet? We've covered most of what I intended to do today on promotion. I think the rest of it can really be covered. If you have some other aspects to bring up, then start up a forum thread over on Machinima Premiere or Machinima.com and get some discussion go about it. And also, of course, the best thing to do is ask somebody who's having success getting their films out there. Ask them what they do, what's working for them. Most people are very willing to share that kind of info with you. So that's probably the best place to start. Find somebody you admire their success level and find out what they're doing, and if they wouldn't mind you trying it as well.